my name is Richard Jeric and my beautiful wife, Sarah. We live down here just outside of New Orleans in Thibodaux, Louisiana. We both teach at Nicholls University, and we're just so thrilled to be a part of this today. I was born and raised in Cleveland, lifetime member of AMLA, thanks to my grandparents, my parents, and Sarah graciously accepted to join and be a part of this. We're going to offer you some really wonderful musical selections throughout the entire presentation. And we'd like to start with a really simple song by a composer you're probably familiar with, Ludwig van Beethoven. This is Beethoven's 250th year since his birth. All around the world, we've been celebrating Beethoven. In particular, here at Nicholls, we offered 8 concerts where we had pianists from around the world come here and perform all of Beethoven's piano sonatas, which total about 11 hours of music. And that was a really incredible project and experience for everyone. We're still kind of living the high after all of those concerts. But we wanted to continue that and offer you this really simple, beautiful love song that Beethoven wrote called Ich liebe dich, which simply means I love you. It's a tender, sweet song to someone that you love, to a close person. We're actually expecting our first child, and we thought that this might be a great way to start by having the song perhaps be a little love song to her as well. So hope you enjoy Beethoven.
Ich liebe dich so wie du mich am Abend am Morgen noch Margaritag, wo du und ich nicht teilten unsere Sorgen.
Wow, that was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Really beautiful, simple song. And we thought that'd be a good way to kind of start the day. And we're going to move to now a piece that's probably more familiar to everyone, and this is Beethoven's famous Moonlight Sonata. An interesting thing about Beethoven's music is he was someone who very much did not enjoy titles or stories behind his music. He thought the music should just speak for itself. But a lot of critics and publishers and writers back in his time titled a lot of his sonatas and music based on what they thought they were hearing. And Moonlight was one of them that over the centuries has stuck with the piece and has come to represent what we think the piece is about. But I always like to say, if you know the entire piece, it's about 15 minutes long. If you know the entire piece, really only the beginning of it sounds like Moonlight. The end of it is quite stormy, actually. You could almost associate the word tempest, perhaps, with the end of it. So perhaps over the course of an entire evening, we move through a lot of different emotions and stories within this piece. So I'll play each movement. There are 3 different sections that have pauses in between. I'll play each movement, talk a little bit about what they mean and what they represent, and then let you hear them. But again, the famous movement that opens the Moonlight Sonata is how we'll begin.
I'm gonna take off of that and just start the chat while he plays. Do you agree with the title Moonlight Sonata? And if not, what would you name it?
That's a beautiful question. I love that, Christy. Thank you. that's the end of the famous part. So did you think that that sounded like Moonlight becomes my question. I'm looking at the chats here a little bit.
We didn't get too many answers. Come on, people.
That's okay, that's okay. They agreed. It's nonetheless beautiful music. I think that's what's most important. And in Beethoven's own opinion, again, whatever you hear, whatever images might conjure in your mind, that's what he's going after. The next section is driven by a dance. Perhaps after walking in the moonlight, you arrive at your destination, and back in those times, perhaps you were going to a ball or a hall to dance the waltz or minuet, whatever it might be. And he actually gives us a waltz in this second movement, the second sort of scene of the piece, if you will. So see if you can dance along with this movement. A really beautiful kind of way to transition us, I think, more inside, perhaps, if you will, from the outdoors. And the very end of this piece that is the true contrast of the moonlight, this is where I think the storm comes in, is this final movement that has so much fire and drama and passion that I think it really brings the whole sonata to a really beautiful, albeit tumultuous, conclusion. So I hope you enjoy the finale of the Moonlight Sonata. I'll be curious if any of you have heard this movement before. It is also quite well known, certainly not as well known as its first movement, the opening, that gets done so often. So enjoy the end of Moonlight. I'm going to move this microphone back just a bit. that's the Moonlight Sonata.
Wow.
I agree. That was amazing.
And as I said, quite a tumultuous conclusion, if you will,
Hmm.
to the opening. He loved contrast, so I hope you got that in the music and in the listening.
We definitely did.
Any questions in the chats or things that we can answer as we're transitioning here?
There haven't been any questions yet, but
Everyone's
folks,
enjoying.
take note that he is looking for questions. So as you have them, go ahead and ask.
Absolutely. And we're going to transition now to some Slovenian songs that we're really excited to present to you today. You want to share what you're singing about?
Absolutely. So when we figured out that we were doing this concert, Oh, you have questions. When did you start playing piano?
Oh my gosh, I was 7 years old, and it was after my grandma, who I believe is watching. Hello.
Hi, Grandma.
And my mom and dad, they saw me playing around with the piano at my grandma's house and would pick up on things somewhat quickly. And they thought it was a good idea to start lessons. And 22, 23 years later, here we are. So it was 7, and it's been about 23 years of playing the piano, and can't change a thing. It's been wonderful. How long have you been singing?
I grew up in a super musical family. I think my mom's here. Hi, Mom. But my dad's a trumpet player and my mom's a singer. So we grew up like doing music all the time. I started my undergrad, my college, I was actually a double major. I played French horn and I sang. And I think singing became like my full priority my junior year. And so yeah, around that time is I think when I really started to be more focused on that, which made my dad sad, but my mom, I think my mom was happy. So yeah, so it's been a fun musical adventure. We met because of music, so it turned out pretty well, I think.
Music brings the world together.
It's true.
In every possible sense.
It's true.
So yeah.
So I think we're going to move on to the Slovenian songs. I think this is actually a project that we ended up enjoying a lot more than we thought we would. Also, you really should go see an opera live if you haven't. They're really great. If you like the ballet, if you like the symphony, opera is just kind of the total. Wagner called it the Gesamtkunstwerk, the total artwork, where it has like visual aspects and musical aspects and acting and a story. And anyway, you really should. Your local university most likely puts on an opera, hopefully in the spring. That's usually when they're put on. So keep an eye out for the operas that are live around your area. So when we started the Slovenian songs, there were a couple of hurdles that we didn't necessarily expect. It's really hard to find Slovenian art song, like hard copies of music. And so there's a lovely album of just Slovenian songs, and I think we were surprisingly limited, but what we found we really enjoyed. And the language is actually a lot easier to sing than I anticipated. The Slavic languages, I think overall get kind of looked over as far as the singing world's concerned. We like our French and our German and our Italian and English sort of. But yeah, the Slovenian I think gets looked over, and it really shouldn't. Both pieces that we're doing today are in 6/8, which is something we typically feel into. So the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you know Seal's Kiss from a Rose, that's like my favorite example of a 6/8 song that you probably know. But you really don't get a lot of that feeling in the art songs themselves. They're very dependent upon the language and the way that it's spoken. So I think very rarely do we get a feeling of an actual like meter in it. But the first piece that we're going to do is Kajle Bigledal, which is a song about it's kind of an unrequited love. It's a woman who sees someone that she's very much in love with, and she's not entirely sure if they love them back. And she kept saying, if I knew, or if you knew, if we said what we're feeling. So it's just kind of this very, I think it's almost a question, if you will. So we'll do that one, and then I will talk about the second one, I think, before we sing it. So.
While she sings in another language, let's text and chat about whether or not we agree with the quote that music is the universal language.
Beautiful piece of music.
So the next one is called Ceranada. Oh, these are both by Anton Lajovic. Sorry. He's a Slovenian composer. You really can't find a lot about him online. That's what I'm saying. A lot of these pieces are not standard repertoire for us in at least the United States.
What we do know about him is that he and a group of other composers were kind of the champions of Slovenian art song. And some consider him to be the father of Slovenian art song. So he really started the opportunity for the language to kind of spread across Europe and for people to hear it and hear the poems and the stories from Slovenia.
Yeah, this is romantic, guys.
Yeah,
late romantic. So they were during this time too. They were all, every country was sort of trying to find their own identity too, and travel was so much more accessible too. So all of these pieces were going to different countries, and people were fascinated by it. Because when they couldn't travel before, they kind of only knew what was their home. So that's another little tidbit. But Ceranada is a much more sad piece. The poetry is kind of ambiguous, but we believe, at least through our interpretation, is that their child has passed away, and they are looking into their bedroom, kind of imagining that they're still there. They talk about how God is within their bed, and there's a part where everything kind of stops, and we call it recitative in opera. It's meant primarily to move the plot along, but this is kind of a reflective moment in this piece where they look in and they see the cherub of their child next to their bed, and they're talking about how it's just so bright and warm in there. So it is a sad piece, but it's a gorgeous piece as well. We really, really like it, and I hope you enjoy it too.
speechless. Amazing. Thank you.
Really incredible. So that was a real fun project for us, and we hope to continue bringing more Slovenian music to our audiences when we perform, because it's truly stunning music. I'm curious, anyone enjoy that? Looked like it, yeah.
We're hearing some good comments, lots of applause buttons and things.
That's great.
One question that came in the chat right after you had been taking questions was, who is your favorite composer? And then Tim, I know that's a question in the polls that he had for us. Which of the ones they're going to play today did we know of and like?
Yeah. Well, I'll let you start.
No, I need to think.
This is our least favorite question because it's so difficult to answer. In this moment.
In this moment, I really enjoy Verdi, and he was kind of the champion of Italian romantic opera, and we're not doing any Verdi today. But also Massenet is another huge, like, I like him a lot, and we are doing some Massenet today.
Yeah, at the end.
But they're very romantic operatic composers, so I like them a lot.
When I was young, I used to joke with my family about my favorite composers being the musical BBC, Bach, Beethoven, and Chopin. Bach we're not doing today, but we started with Beethoven, and it's a perfect transition to Chopin, who we're going to do next. And Chopin was such an interesting composer, one, because of where he was when he was growing up, but then also some of his background and some of his ideas and whatnot. Did you want to share the results of the poll, Tim?
Actually, I launched the wrong one, so I'm going to launch this one.
Never mind.
But here, I'll put it up there. People can respond to it while you guys get ready to present the next song. How about that?
Perfect. And I'll talk a little bit more about Chopin. Chopin was a Polish composer, but spent almost half of his life in Paris, actually. And it had to do with needing, for his career, to go to Paris, which at the time was the musical center of the world, really. But also Poland was under siege, if you will, constant battles and conflicts with Russia. And there was a big battle that happened shortly after Chopin left. And it almost made him break down when he heard that his country, Poland, was dissolved and was taken over by Russia, who previously was already occupying it, to be sure, but it got to a point where the revolutionaries in Poland were angering the Russians to the point where they just dissolved the government there and took over. And Chopin never returned. But probably most famously, more than any other composer, Chopin always said that his heart was in Poland, even though he was in Paris. And when I was in Poland a few years ago, I got to see in Warsaw the church where he actually requested that his heart be taken and laid to rest. So his body still to this day is in Paris, but his heart, where it always was throughout his life, is in the center of the capital city of Poland, in a pillar of his hometown church, which is really, I think, kind of a special thing. And the piece that I'm going to play for you was written shortly after he left Poland for the last time, and you hear kind of the sadness and the sorrow. And to this day, his music just represents for the Polish people something incredibly powerful, incredibly nationalistic, from a pride perspective, from their homeland perspective, from keeping the country alive within their hearts. And I am Polish on the other side of my family, Jeric, the Slovenian side. Nick Borowicz is my Polish side of the family. So I'm really excited to present this Chopin piece for you. Did the results of the poll come through?
Yep.
Do we want to start with that?
Yep, and I shared it now. So it looks like Beethoven and Chopin are the top getters.
Oh, someone voted for us, but we
Yes. I saw that. That was pretty sly. And
That's
then
great. That's great.
Lajovic, which is the Slovenian composer, correct?
Yes.
That no one has heard of them before, but like you said, this is art song, and that's slightly different than the more common songs that people associate with.
Yeah,
So that is
Exactly.
a
And
learning
hopefully, like us, if you'd never heard of him before, hopefully it was enjoyable and perhaps will stir you to find out more about him and seek out more of his music.
Absolutely.
So this is a Chopin Nocturne. He wrote it when he was very young. If any of you have seen the movie The Pianist, an absolutely incredible piece of art, that movie. This Nocturne of Chopin, again, because of the emotions that are tied to it, it kind of is strung throughout the entire movie. And it's a special one for me. And I hope that you find it that way as well. truly a special piece, like I was saying. And as I was playing it, there's a section in it where he quotes a piece that he wrote when he was even younger, that he actually wrote for his sister. And when he wrote this nocturne, he never intended for anyone to see it, actually, except his sister. He sent it to her when he was abroad and said, here is a little piece of home, away from home. And it was found years after his death, and it's remained, I think, one of his most famous pieces. Really a special piece of music. Hope that was enjoyable. Anything else from the chat? Oh, that's so great to hear about Chopin helping us through. Thanks for sharing that, Tim. We wanted to continue actually by, since we did some Slovenian, we wanted to also do a little Polish since we were doing Chopin as well. And for our wedding, we actually wrote a piece of music. She's being kind.
I didn't write it. It was him.
We wrote a piece that is really special for our family. And my grandma who's watching, I'm sure she'll recognize this. It's called Serdeczna Matko. And the music's all about a loving mother caring and taking care of her children. In particular, it's the Virgin Mary. And it's got us through a lot of things, I think, in our life. And it's meaningful for us, and it's a beautiful piece in so many ways. And I think I'll just let it speak for itself. Is there anything you want to say about it?
Except he wrote it. I didn't write it. I'll sing it though.
Nonetheless, I had her voice in mind when I was writing it. It starts off with the traditional melody associated with this, and then it grows and varies as a result of that. So enjoy Serdeczna Matko. Hope you enjoyed that one as well.
Wow, did. I had two questions while you were playing. I selfishly hope they entertain the group. One is, Sarah, how do you keep the emotion that you're feeling like appropriate, but not too much for the music? I could see breaking down in tears over some of them. And how do you like stop it right before that?
Right. No, if you let your brain go a little bit too much into that, it can be hard. You almost have to pick a spot on the wall and just not kind of turn that part of your brain off, and just think about the poetry a little bit. So that's primarily what I was, and the Polish, because I don't speak Polish. So I more try to just emote the overall emotion instead of thinking a little bit too much into it, because yeah, I would be on the floor if I did.
And the other thing that came to my mind was instantly it sounded like high church or liturgical church music to me. Is there a music theory to how and why, like, some music sounds like movie soundtrack versus stage opera?
Sure. It was originally a hymn, a very traditional Polish hymn that's centuries old, and really indicative of the country and the people in many ways. And so the melody itself already was kind of in a mood or a style, if that makes sense. And when I did the arrangement, it just kind of enabled the melody to do different things, not so much to take it out of its original context or style or mood, if that makes sense. And there's other music that definitely is written with a different purpose, even if not intended to be so. So you're absolutely correct in what you were hearing.
And there's one that just came into the chat about whether or not you perform in other online venues. And I know you kind of at the end want to talk about some other ways to hear you, so that may hold, but I also know one of your polls you wanted to know from these people is, have they been to online concerts, or where have they been?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Tim, that's your hint.
Yeah,
if you
I was just
can
gonna say,
find
is that my cue?
We've done a couple online things. He actually just did a concert last night with the Baton Rouge Symphony Orchestra. They did Oktoberfest, so they did all Baroque music, and it was very lovely. And then we performed earlier. Baton Rouge Symphony was doing kind of an online concert series, and we were a part of one of those as well. And then just kind of little things here and there.
Yeah, the pandemic has definitely, I think, allowed artists to really explore what's possible virtually and online. And some organizations, schools, orchestras, operas, ballets, what have you, have really embraced it, I think, and the audiences are just ecstatic, similar to what we're doing today. a real safe way to still enjoy so much of what's out there artistically, visually, orally, whatever. So we've enjoyed seeing more of that. And I think it's only going to continue. Here at Nicholls, we've done a couple similar type of things. Next month, we're going to be on another all Beethoven program, and that's going to be here live, but we're going to also stream it online. So people from anywhere really, can come here to Thibodaux, Louisiana, and, share with us in this music. So, so yeah, we've been doing much more of that, I think, than before 2020.
You'll need to share that information with us so that we can spread it throughout our audience here today, but also throughout the AMLA, because as we go through these life enhancement little presentations that we do on numerous different topics, we have opportunities to appeal to different people, but then it usually circles back to where people actually talk to one another and say, hey, were you part of that one or this one? And this will be a way to do like a follow-on to something like this. We can listen in.
Wonderful. Yeah.
All right. I did a poll. It says, when you go to the arts performances, where have you gone? And I'm going to wrap it up now because it looks like most of you have entered something, and then I'll share the results right now. And it looks like concert or theater or park or amphitheater. Those are the top two
Yeah, that's
answers. But after this, online only will have a few if they are ever asked this polling question again. So very good.
That's so true. Last night the performance was outdoors, actually, in a park, and it was really well attended. And
a crisp 65 degrees
yes,
outside.
we were chilling.
We had frost this morning.
It's 75 outside right now.
Wow, you got to share some of that with us up here.
Yeah, we'll help.
I may need to unhide my camera so I can make a face at you. That is not fair.
Absolutely. Well, we'll end the Chopin set with one more piece of his that is also, I think, quite famous. I think a lot of you will have heard this before. It's in the style of a Polish dance called a Polonaise. And a Polonaise was a very regal, noble type of dance, mostly found in the big ballrooms and palaces of the royalty and the noble people at the time. But again, because of what Chopin was doing, trying to keep Poland alive for him, but also for the rest of Europe when he was in Paris, a lot of these traditional Polish dances, songs, melodies, rhythms, what have you, ended up being the foundation for much of the music that he wrote, and he helped kind of make a lot of Europe aware of what Poland is contributing musically and artistically to the continent. So this is his military Polonaise. Not a name, again, like Moonlight for Beethoven, not a name that Chopin gave to the piece, but one that has kind of stuck over the centuries, and we all refer to it as a result as the military Polonaise. So please enjoy. great piece of music, such a rousing piece. Shows the pride of Poland, I think. And we're going to end with an opera aria that she sings better than anyone in the world.
That's not
I've
true.
heard.
So this is Il est doux, il est bon, which is from Massenet's Hérodiade. And it's, well, first of all, Massenet he's considered what we call late French grand opera composition. So golden age of opera, we're talking like 1850s, in that kind of bubble. So we're a little bit later onto that. People have like really, composers specifically have felt the influence of Wagner, who's, the bum, 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 sort of heaviness. So you get a lot of those thick textures in this piece where it's like big sweeping melodies, but also he really knows when to bring it in and make it really intimate when it needs to be. So when I say textures, you can think like, fabric, or food, if you would think of textures that way. So, he knows when to use fleece and knows when to use satin in ways that are really, really effective. But in this aria, Salome, sorry, I couldn't think of her name. Pregnancy brain is like so real, you guys. Salome is going through some kind of personal issues. She's trying to figure out who her mother really is. And she's saying that John the Baptist is the only one that really understands her. And so the words are, you are sweet, you are good. How am I supposed to live without you? And yeah, it's just a really beautiful kind of like, heart-wrenching aria. We love performing it. So,
Yeah. So the whole opera kind of centers around the biblical story, granted taken with a lot of liberties.
Lots of liberties.
But the story about John the Baptist imprisoned, and it really centers on the characters of King Herod and Salome, the daughter, mainly.
Mhm.
And this is one of her, again, as Sarah said, most famous arias or solo songs from that opera.
Yes.
And we think it'll bring a rousing conclusion to the afternoon. So enjoy.
I'm gonna go back.
Oh yeah, just a bit.
Celui dont la parole efface toute peine, le prophète disait, c'est vers lui que je vais. Il est doux, il est bon, sa parole est sereine.
Thank you.